that you can feel the difference. We all have a barometer in us when we hear the truth.
What I hear is going on now is great opportunity, and it's actually sort of necessary. And I mean necessary, not that we have to suffer through stuff, but that we have to change.
Stay focused on your mission. Those of you who are here for a mission of love and connection, wonderful. You can grow that in ways you couldn't even possibly imagine.
All egos to love their egos, right? Ego is synonymous with your humanity.
Experience manifestation and new levels of creation. You seed all of humanity with greater potentials and possibilities that are available to all.
What do you believe is the most important message or lesson that humanity needs to learn at this stage in our collective journey?
To heal and to love all with equality. And this will not happen in your lifetime. Those of you that are listening to this who are going to have the more traditional earthly lifespan, that will not happen and be complete in your lifetime, but it is what is being worked towards in these next few hundred years. And you are here to be a part of that. So even though we say it will not be the end result in your lifetime, for many of you, it should be the only focus. And it will be the only focus. You're doing it in your personal lives. Many of you are doing it in the work that you are doing. And of course, you have despair or sadness when you see anything anti that mission showing up in the world. And we understand that. We understand the grief, and the grief process is important, for it helps you let go of and move sadness through you that needs to be released. But what we will tell you is stay focused on your mission. Those of you who are here for a mission of love and connection, wonderful. You can grow that in ways you couldn't even possibly imagine. Right now, you might be sitting there feeling a bit disconnected in your life and wishing there was more connection in the world. So we say, good, there's your mission. You've seen exactly what it is that you are supposed to lean into. And the more you lean into it over and over and over and over again, you will not only raise your own frequency, but you will be helping to create that energy on the planet. And we will tell you that connection energy wants to multiply. Humans do love connection. Even if it's not connection with other human beings, they love to feel connected to spirit, life force, purpose, anything that is sentient on the planet. So if you are working on behalf of connection, we are not saying stick your head in the sand and avoid areas in your world that you may need to lend your voice to or bring a certain amount of justice to. But we are saying there are a group of you who are here to amplify connection in a way that it will help to show the, shall we say, disconnection present in other areas. So we have always said that your political systems are currently quite corrupted. We will say approximately 20% of them on the planet are not as corrupted. There are certain leaders, certain areas in the world who are able to hold a certain level of, we won't even say high vibration, but we will say more neutral vibration. But there are those of you who can sit there and get obsessed about the despair that you feel about the corruption in those areas. And what you will do is go down into a downward spiral, and your attention on that area and only on that area will help to fuel it rather than heal it. Or you can focus on being a demonstration of a high vibration, and then eventually more and more people start to look at the corruption and the disempowerment hoisted on people through your political system, and they start to reject it. And it's only when enough people will reject that power paradigm and dynamic that it will lose its power. And that will happen, by the way. It may not happen overnight, but it will happen. And you are already in the seeds of that right now. And it will be playing out in quite a strong way over the next 5 to 10 years on the planet. And so that is why we encourage those of you who feel you are here to generate and create connection for and within others. It will expose any darkness or low vibration that you yourself feel grief around, simply because you will be creating a different energy that will highlight the contrast. Remember, most people do not like to be told what to think or what to believe. They like to see it and they like to feel it. that is when people change. You can give someone an ideology, and for them it's just an ideology, but if it runs through their body, and if they recognize something that is good, and they recognize a benevolent energy in the world, they start to far sooner recognize when an energy is not benevolent. So this is where that phrase, be the change you wish to see in the world, or be the example you wish to see in the world, is another way of looking at it, is so important. And we cannot underestimate the importance of that for many of your listeners, because many of your listeners, with the exception of the couple of percent who are sent to, shall we say, demean your mission. Yes, they are those commenters who like to lob grenades in their comments and in their words and fire their arrows. And that's normal, by the way. Don't get too disheartened, any of you who see those kinds of comments. Some of them are wounded people, and some of them are groups who are trying to target what you are doing so that you do not disrupt the apple cart that they have fought to keep control of for so long. But instead, the reason we say all of this is most of your listeners are here to create shifts for themselves and for others in the world. And that is the highest work you can do in terms of your mission.
How can individuals better connect to their own spirit guides and receive guidance in their daily lives?
Well, Lee likes to tell people to channel write for themselves. And so his advice is always sit down with a pen and paper, or if you prefer to use technology, use a screen and a keyboard, and write, what does my higher self want to tell me today? The reason higher self is a good name is it stops you getting too attached to the idea you have to meet your guides, or you have to meet Jesus, or you have to meet God, or whoever it is you think you have to meet to connect to spirit. You all have a higher self. You all have a soul. So some of you may say, what does my soul want to tell me today? Choose whatever word feels neutral and accessible to you, and then write the message. So what does my soul want to tell me today? And then take a minute or two to write yourself a message from your soul. And your logical mind goes, well, I don't know how to do that. And we say, absolutely you do. Of course you do. It's just you haven't practiced. You haven't done it yet. And so many of you, when you do it and are surprised that you get a message, you will say, well, how do I know that I'm not making it up? And we'll say, well, you are. You're involved. You're not being possessed by spirit. Lee is not possessed by us right now. He is allowing this to happen. He is contributing to this happening. He is involved. So we say to all of you, start writing messages to yourself from your soul on a daily basis, or at least 3 or 4 times a week, and you will notice your vibration will change. Because when your soul is allowed to speak to you and shift your vibration, then you start to slowly but surely let your soul back into your human life, and disconnection starts to become less and connection starts to become more. But it is a practice, and it will require, for many of you, a discipline that some of you will be immediately turned off by when we tell you to do it, partly because you think of school and partly because you don't believe that it will work. And we tell you it will. If for 3 or 4 months you wrote yourself a message from your soul at least 3 times a week, you would notice a big vibrational shift, not just in the way you feel, but in your awareness in the world and the way you see the world. And remember, you all say you want change, but actually fear is always in the room when it comes to making changes. So it is actually your fear that will stop you following through. For many of you, not for all of you. Some of you will take our words and run with it, and you will have wonderful experiences. And it is of no mind to us whether you do it or you don't do it. We're simply asking you to notice when you don't, and ask yourself questions why you're not. And we will say, because fear of change and fear of connection to spirit is in the room and has been sewn into the room of your life as a human ever since you were a child. Even the spiritual among you have to battle it. So if you want to see a major change in your life, ask your soul what it wants to tell you a few times a week, write the answer, and see what comes through without too much judgment or control. Just listen to what your soul wants you to hear. And many of the times your soul will speak to you in a very loving way that can be quite jarring to many of you because you aren't used to speaking to yourselves that way. So it can be quite an emotional process. And that is when you know it's working and you're on the right path. Your soul will always calibrate you to love first. That is why those who begin channeling They will sometimes complain they are getting mostly loving messages at the beginning. They aren't getting incredible astrophysics information. Well, no, you have to start with the right calibration and the right vibration. The information will get more useful when you are more used to that vibration of love.
Now, are there any techniques that people can do to raise their vibrational frequency and connect to their higher selves?
Yes, but we would like to point something out here. There are all kinds of techniques, and you can find them if you go looking for them. But we will tell you that the techniques are all there in childhood. They are connection, they are play, they are dancing, they are singing, they are running around, they are using your body, they are connecting with nature, they are connecting with other beings. So we are not in any way dismissing some of these more, shall we say, high-level techniques, but it is all about what you expose yourself to. So are you exposing yourself to violent television 5 times a week? What that's going to do to your frequency is it's going to, at some level, put that into your energy field. We're not saying that there isn't room for it. Some of you like watching fights because it processes old past life energies for you. It's the way that you process it. So we don't want to put a judgmental label on things, but what do you run towards? The reason so many of you gravitate towards what you would call personal growth or spiritual work is because you are wanting to drink in more of that. You are wanting to raise your vibration, so you expose yourself to frequencies, conversations that will put you in that energy more. So what we are really saying is the techniques are obvious. We don't mean to belittle wonderful techniques or wonderful programs that people have come up with. They're great. What we're saying is, how connected are you on a daily basis? And have you made a list of the things that you connect to? They're really quite simple. Some of you love cooking. Some of you love dancing. Some of you love going out in nature. Are you practicing those things? Or are you just leaving it up to chance as to when those things cross your path? So if you start actively practicing the things that make you feel connected and lit up, you will see that those are the techniques. Connection to life, connection to others, connection to spirit, connection to purpose. The key word here, connection.
Can you share any insights on the concept of the soul's purpose and how individuals can discover and fulfill their unique missions in this life?
Well, your unique mission in this life is usually connected to those areas of interest you had when you were younger. We don't mean to pin everything on your childhood here, because we understand for some of you that can be quite tricky. If you had a very, what we will say, brutal childhood, which some of you had, very difficult, distressing childhoods, it can be annoying to hear that the seeds are there in childhood. And to be fair, yes, your childhood may not have allowed for those seeds to bloom. You may now be in a process of trying to figure out, what is it I enjoy? What is it I gravitate to? And as you go through your life and you evolve, as you essentially reincarnate while you're alive in the body as you age, especially those of you who take big leaps spiritually, you will need to redefine the things that you love. You will need to refine the things you love, the passions you have, the areas of expertise or prowess, if you like. But for most of you, when you come in with a mission that a child has, and depending on how that child is allowed to express or progress, the mission will remain intact, or it will get covered up. It will get covered up as you get older. So think back, most of you, to when you were a child, and what used to light you up, what used to be passionate for you. And we will say, going back to a few of those things in adulthood can connect you to the next level of your mission. You may have loved dance as a child, and there is this feeling that expressing and moving your body is now a bit beyond you. You're a bit too old. You haven't done it for decades. We will say go back to dance, not necessarily because you are going to become the world's dancer for the next 30, 40 years and you're going to dance every day, although you might, that might be the outcome. But because you're going to reconnect to that part of your energy that at the time understood that dance was the expression. And when you reconnect that back into the body gets to evolve the expression. So some of you will find that dance turns into physical exercise, or turns into training your body, or turns into gentle qigong movement or tai chi. You see, the body knows what your mission is. It places your focus mentally, emotionally, spiritually toward those things that you magnetize. There is a reason a child comes in and suddenly is drawn towards musical instruments. It's because music is part of their mission. And so they are drawn to it and they start working with it immediately. But for those of you who had a tough childhood or feel a bit disconnected from yourself as a child, we would say, write down the lists of things that you feel most joyous about. And if joy is a hard word for you right now, you think, well, I have not felt joy in a decade, then we say start with peace.
This is the greatest awakening of a species at an expedited rate that has ever occurred. And you wanted to be here for it. You wanted to be part of it because of your great love for humanity, for the animals, for your beloved earth. You're here because of your great love. You knew this was the great awakening. You knew this would be the great transformation of consciousness on earth. You knew that an entire species was going to awaken to the love that they are. And you wanted to witness it in a physical body with your incredible human senses, for the joy of it, for the magic of it, for the power of it. So yes, you did have a plan. And you living your life to the fullest, whatever that means for you, is the greatest thing that you could ever do for your beloved human family. You transcending out of separation, fear, lack, limitation, suffering, struggle, into peace, joy, love, harmony, freedom, abundance, well-being, is the greatest thing that you can do for your beloved human family. As you explore your imagination and experience manifestation and new levels of creation, you seed all of humanity with greater potentials and possibilities that are available to all. Does this answer your question?
It does. It does. Now, how do our past lives affect us in this life?
Well, for most of you, you use your stories of your past lives to give your power away in this life and in this moment. We'll give you an example. Someone said, I had a past life where I was stoned for speaking this truth. So I go to put myself out in the world and share my truth and my messages, but I can't move forward because of what happened in my past life. And we would say there's no difference from what you're calling a past life or younger years in this life. You are a creator within your own creation. You are a powerful creator. You are a multi-dimensional being. All things are happening now. Get your power back in this moment. And we said to this person, okay, so go back into that past life and stand up and say, no, this is not happening. Put down your stones. I am here as pure love. Look into my eyes as I look into yours. You are pure love. You are divine. This is not happening. Put down your stones. Go home. And see yourself standing there in your power, so moved by love, by the energy that you feel in every cell of your body. And smile. That's how powerful you are. Do you understand?
I do. This is a question I get all the time. Why would a soul want to reincarnate into an abusive family, abusive relationship, or to have some sort of physical disease or impairment or handicap that will will torture them essentially for their entire lifetime. Why would a soul want to do that?
Well, first we will tell you, you will always cause your own suffering when you think you know what another soul's journey should be. You have chosen this life, and your journey aligned to your soul is the most important thing here. We have brought forth a understanding of what we referred to as the 11 spiritual roles of the soul: messenger, uplifter, way shower, connector, which you very well are, guide, many other things. But one of these roles is the transformer. They often choose to come into families where there are patterns or generations of abuse, maybe alcohol, drugs, negativity, physical, sexual. And they awaken into their power and say, no more. This stops with me. And in their realization and coming into their power and remembering who they really are, they transform generations of negative patterns. And many of you have chosen that. From your highest perspective, you know you are only love. You know there is only love. And you know the truth of the other. It is often hurt people that hurt people. It is often people that have been hurt themselves that hurt the animals with little consciousness of their impact. For someone who comes in with what you call a tragic situation. For example, not too long ago in your human experience, having a child who had Down syndrome was something one wanted to avoid. Yet, if you have ever been around a child with Down syndrome or an adult with Down syndrome, you will likely find one of the happiest, most loving beings you have ever met. And it's clear that nothing has gone wrong. We were recently asked about a child who was diagnosed with a terminal disease. And you can look at that and say, oh, that's terrible. But the truth of everything is love. The truth of that child is love. The love it has brought to the world. The love that it is. And you have no idea whether that child choosing to come forth to support and guide their parents to their own awakening and realization so they can transcend into pure love. When you look at it from that perspective, if you can just allow yourself into the potentials and the possibilities of how this is happening for you and is a gift, in that moment you will open up and receive all that this experience has to offer you. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. Now, what happens to a soul once it decides that it is done with this life? Literally, like it dies here, the body here dies, it goes back. I've had a lot of near-death experiencers on the show, so I have some idea of what happens, at least from their point of view, of what happens on the other side. But I'd love to hear your thoughts of what happens to the soul. Where does it go? How, does it hang out at a bar waiting for the next life? What happens on the other side in that sense?
Well, first, we'd like to talk about the transition process on your planet. We've had many ask us, how do you eradicate cancer or other terminal diseases? How do you get rid of all that stuff? And our answer to that is, so long as souls are still contracting with cancer as their way of transitioning out of the physical body, you will always have terminal diseases. Every single one of you, including your animal species, has the ability to peacefully release the density of the body and transition into non-physical without pain, without suffering, without trauma. Just your awareness of this begins to change everything. We would say it's like a call. The human starts to feel that it's time for the next grand adventure, that it's time to move into higher dimensions of consciousness where the body is not necessary. It begins to feel this and gets even excited about this. They go to their loved ones and say, I've got a grand adventure coming up. I'm going to make my transition. I'm so excited. I love you. I will always be with you. I'm going to change into non-physical form, but I'm going to be more with you than I could even be when I was in physical form. And it would be accepted, and it would be celebrated just like birth. In fact, birth is far more like death, and death is far more like birth. You would celebrate it. You would understand, because you would not believe in the illusion of separation. The person would begin to feel it even more, or the animal, until they maybe got to the place where they were somewhat in this world, but very much on the other side already. They might lay down on the ground under their favorite tree and close their eyes, taking deep breaths, feeling a gentle contraction in the body as the soul gently releases the body into the earth and moves fully into non-physical.
The angels encourage all egos to love their egos, right? Ego is synonymous with your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand that your ego, if you can just imagine that your brain is the size of a watermelon and your ego is a green garden pea, it's that small, stuck in the watermelon. And so when that green garden pea can have the awareness, oh my gosh, I've got this whole watermelon. That really, if we expand that, is the entire divine oneness. Then the ego doesn't have to be so defended, so self-protective, and so self-absorbed, because that's actually what makes it feel lonely and miserable, because it goes into this place, there's not enough for me. And it goes into this place, I have to fight for what I have. I have to.
There's not enough.
Right. There's not enough, which is, fear. It's fear. It's everywhere. But the more we take that ego into the feminine brain, which just means the creative brain, the big watermelon around the green pea, where the intuition flows and where we have access to spirit and to creator, then wow, is there abundance there and just so much help and security and the trust that we're never going to run out. We're not going to run out. So we don't need to fight about it.
Right. There's abundance in the world. There's not like the money is not going to run out. The money is endless, energy, that kind of energy, food eventually, and I always use, I've been using a lot of analogies in this conversation, but an apple tree, there's more than, one seed brought you hundreds of apples, and that's just the one tree. Life is about abundance. It's about giving more than we even need sometimes to have access to things. So if you go into life with that mentality, things become easier, I feel. And
definitely. And if you let angels help you, they are forces of love, and they do incarnate as human beings sometimes. I'm often asked that question. They prefer, well, like, wouldn't we prefer to stay in the realm of heaven because they can be of greater service from that vibration without having to take on fear, but they certainly understand it. And they help us by, they just direct that ego and redirect that ego home to soul. And they help us to even remember. This is one of their favorite things, angels, is to help ego to ask, ask. Have you asked the universe for what you need? Have you asked, whatever your word for God is, have you asked your own soul for help? Creator, divine oneness, source. Ask for help. Because asking for help actually shifts the vibration of ego to a place where it's plugged back into that bigger brain that says, oh yeah, here it comes. Because when you put out a prayer or an intention, Spirit hears you, and it's on its way. Ego can distract you. It's like the angels. Here's another analogy. It's like, okay, you've ordered a package from Amazon, and your ego keeps having you move to different houses in different states and different locations. So where is God going to deliver the package? So if you are grounded in the moment and breathing and just saying, okay, thank you. Don't let me get in the way of receiving my package. That really helps. And angels help us to do that, Alex.
Well, and I think we've tapped into something here. I think you and I should come up with an app that allows us to connect to God and be able to track packages coming to us. I think we'll make millions. Now, you've talked a lot about fear. Is there any advice you can give us to help overcome fear in our lives? Not the good fear, like there's a tiger in the room going to kill us, but the other kind of fear of, because that's good fear. The other kind of fear of what we deal with on a daily basis, the kind of made up fear of living in the past or living in the future and not living in the now.
What the angels teach is to use the energy of your crown chakra. You have batteries of spiritual energy that you have access to. They only grow in size as you use the energy. It's like working out with a muscle, right? The muscle gets stronger the more you use it. The chakras belong to your soul. So the more your ego says, I need some of that beautiful violet purple energy because I'm in a place of fear, then the stronger that energy is going to, the more you're going to experience that energy in your daily life. So it's very simple. Whether you visualize it or you just hold the intention, you put your head under a violet fire rain shower or violet energy, pick your words. That's going to clear the fear out of your mind immediately and help you to ground. The crown chakra is made out of the root chakra. Well, that was a sharp whistle. My apology for that. But that root chakra grounds us to the here and now. It's the divine mother or divine feminine energy that grounds us to the earth. And the other part of the violet fire of the crown is the will chakra, the throat chakra, about communicating, finding the truth, living in the truth. The truth is, there is no fear. It's illusion. We get to experience here. It's like the scary part of the movie. So the more we buy into the fear, the more real it's going to feel, that experience. So when you just put yourself in violet fire, I like to be in a violet fire river and let the current flow through. It's made out of energy. Or swim in a violet fire ocean, or stand under a violet fire waterfall. But you can't have fear in your ego brain. You can't have fear and be focused on the energy of the crown chakra in the same moment, because it's love, and love transforms fear. It's what it does. It finds fear and it changes us back into love. And the violet of the crown is also forgiveness. The angels teach us, if you really want to stay out of fear, even though you're subconscious, that's what's happening to the whole human collective, is the fear in the subconscious is purging. What they call the old male part of that fear, the patriarchal old male of control and judgment and not enough and unworthiness, all that good stuff. It's purging. So if you want to help your own subconscious to purge but not get pulled into the quicksand, just take a few moments, be in that violet fire, surrender your ego to the will of your soul, and forgive even that which you don't even remember. Just walk around and say, I like to go back and forth. I surrender, I forgive it all. And those energies, those frequencies of love are miraculous, which means, we have instant vibrational shifts. So we go from a dark movie to a happy movie very, very quickly.
Now, there are so many beliefs that we have, belief systems, ideas about ourselves that are limiting. Do you have any advice for people on how we can change these limiting beliefs that are not serving us anymore?
The easiest way to change limiting beliefs is, first of all, to identify them. Mm-hmm. Because once you identify the limiting belief, the good news, Alex, is that says you're ready to let go of it. So when you find it, an easy and fun thing to do is just imagine it's a book, and you take the book and you toss it in the violet fire river, and you send it back to the central sun. The central sun just means the heart of divine oneness, the heart of the creator. It's where all souls originate from, certainly the 12 archangels. And that violet fire of our crown, that's why we have it. It just takes that belief and it turns it to dust. And if that doesn't feel powerful enough, right? Like, well, that was too easy. Another fun thing to do is call on whom I refer to as Big Blue, but Archangel Michael of the Central Sun. And Archangel Michael's energy is the same as the will chakra. So we're bringing in highest truth. And you just call on Archangel Michael and you play a little Star Wars and you have this sapphire blue lightsaber and you poke it in the belief. And the belief blows up, and it just does. The truth is, if it sticks in the belief, then there's a past life that you have to forgive. But most of the time, it just turns to dust and that belief is gone. Now, we are human beings and we often have multiple copies of the same book with different, that we tweak the title, we tweak the chapter, we put the end in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we have to call on that Archangel Michael's sword more than once to clear a belief that is deep and old, and maybe our ancestors had it. If our ancestors experienced lack and not enough resources and hardship, it's amazing how we can go, wow, everything is good, but I'm still afraid of not having enough. And that's because, that belief, that book is stuck all the way down there in the DNA. But Violet Fire and Archangel Michael's sword will reach it. Love reaches everything. Doesn't
Right.
matter how buried it is. It will find it out and transform it.
Now, can you explain to the audience what the divine experiment is?
The divine experiment. Well, that's why we're here. So, Schoolroom Earth, and the 12 archangels are not the only ones that refer to Earth as Schoolroom Earth, was designed and developed so that souls could travel to an experiment and an experience where they could experience the opposite in vibration to love, and to see, well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What happens if I journey into illusion? Because all I know is truth and love. And so Schoolroom Earth was created with a great deal of protection, by the way, and incredible genius. And the faculty of this school is stellar. So this divine experiment was that we could experience, souls could experience the opposite in vibration of love, which is fear. And so that expresses as opposites, day and night.
Duality.
What we think of as male and female, which the angels say it's not opposite at all. It's all just a mix. But in every male, there is a very powerful female that he needs to find. And in every female, there's a powerful male that she needs to find. But those opposites, right? Rich, poor, happy, sad. We can experience all of those depths of emotions and thoughts, and we get to experience in this experiment the duality, really, of past and future. And the angels say, what matters is the moment, being in the present, because then you can change it. But the good news is, this is, old news now, but the experiment has been successful, and the school would love to transform back into its heavenly garden so that it's no longer a place to learn about suffering and violence and dark ETs and
Got you. All the boogeymen of the universe,
right, exactly.
if you will, all the fear and things that we can kind of conjure up in our own minds. Now, in your opinion and in the angel's opinion, what are the keys to freedom in this life?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring them in because they do a better job, and they just want you to know that they're not going to quote lessons from the 12 archangels. It is in the book, but they want to bring it in just how they want to bring it in. So
sure.
Beautiful human beings, the keys to freedom and the keys to success. It is simple. It is to return your mind whenever it wanders, because it loves to wander. Bring it back to love. And if you are thinking thoughts of fear that are negative, that go to the poor me, I feel victimized, I feel cheated, or I want to be in control of my future, how do I know that I'm going to be safe? That you truly surrender to the care of your soul. And you say, higher self, if you are real, and if it's true that I have not been abandoned here, then lift me up so that I know and so that I trust that freedom is my birthright. Happiness is my birthright. Success is my birthright.
The guide said humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations. And everything that's been created in fear or is rooted in fear, they say, is going to have to be re-seen or re-known or recreated in some higher way, because we can't continue as we have. They said, we're the only, the fact that we think that building a bigger bomb is something that's going to keep us safe is insanity as far as they understand it. But what I hear is going on now is great opportunity, and it's actually sort of necessary. And I mean necessary not that we have to suffer through stuff, but that we have to change. We can't really go on the way we were. And so the guides talk about this as sort of a tidal wave of change. And they talk about us being brought to they call like a higher shore than we've been on. But we have to go through this process of releasing the known and who we think we are and how we think we're supposed to operate. This is all, they say, sort of like the last hurrah of separation. And it's the belief that we're separate from our source, but also that is the belief that we're separate from one another, and that we should continue that claim. So a lot of the polarity I suspect that we're experiencing now is this stuff really coming up to be seen, because I don't think anything gets healed when it's hidden. It has to be brought to the light in order to be reclaimed by the light, and we have free will. So I finally see it as positive. The guide started saying maybe about a year ago, which was surprising to me and a bit of a relief. They said, humanity has chosen to, collectively, we've chosen to move beyond this. So we're going to make it. I don't know that we're going to make it without some serious bumps in the road. We may have to experience the futility of war to understand that there's no point to it, that it's insanity. That may be what happens. I don't know. They don't give predictions, but they have said, we're going to make it. And I actually trust them. The last couple of years have totally transformed my life, and I'm grateful for the changes. But, I know it's been tough.
Yeah, and there's been just such a massive shift in the way we look at things and the way life has changed. This interview, normally I would have to fly in to see you, or you would have to fly in to see me for something like this to happen. And the technology Skype's been around for a long time, but it wasn't normal. And now something like this can happen. Same thing with working remotely. And that was frowned upon before, where now it's demanded, almost like the workforce has finally said, you know what, I have some power here. I'm going to decide how I want to work. And there's it's that kind of that shift. Now, a lot of the things that, most of the problems that we have in our life is due to ego and letting go of that me state. And it seems like it's getting worse with social media and all that stuff. Why do you feel that it's so difficult to let go of ego? And do you have any advice on letting go? I know that's a very big question, but do you have any advice?
When I was in my maybe early 30s and suffering, I heard something in channel. I'm 99% sure I heard it in channel because I wrote it down on a piece of paper because I didn't understand it, but I knew it probably made sense. And what I wrote down was, freedom will come when the throne relinquishes its king. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? But it really means, who the hell is sitting in the throne and running the show? And the guides I work with say, the small self, which is the personality structure or the egoic structure, rules a small kingdom, and that's where everything's supposed to be about them and what they think. And, the small self, they say, knows itself through history. There's nothing wrong with it. It's an aspect of who we are, but we've really put the cart before the horse. So what the guides teach is actually the reclamation of the true self. And they do that through attunement and energetic attunement. And it's really quite simple, because the attunements they work through are done through language that's sort of encoded with vibration. And they're usually very palpable for people when they work with them. So it's a process of re-knowing who we are beyond the idea of who we are. So I can say, yeah, I'm Paul, I live in Maui, I'm this age, this is the color of my skin, this is my background, this is what my parents did. I can do all that, and that's a way of identifying the self, but that's not who I truly am, just like it's not who anybody truly is. These are ways of knowing the self through sort of cultural agreements. And when we start to move beyond that to a claim, the guides would say the claim is, I know who I am in truth. And they say, to know is to realize. I know who I am in truth. And they say, in truth, a lie can't be held. To move to that at the cost of the other is the challenge. You see, I still want what I want when I want it, and I'm a curmudgeon, and I get cranky, and, I get pissed off when things don't go the way I think they should. But I also have let go of an enormous amount of the ideas of who I'm supposed to be in the world. And this work has forced that. I had a very different outline for my path than I ended up on. And what I've been given is actually much better. And I think part of the reason we hold on so tightly is we don't trust that if we don't get what we want, we're not going to be met. Even in the spiritual community, people are saying, I've got to manifest this, I've got to get that, get. It's like the universe is a catalog that everybody's supposed to order from. And the problem with that, because it's not untrue, things are available, but people are claiming what they think they're supposed to have. And that's based on some other menu that's inherited. I'm supposed to be beautiful, wealthy, happy all the time, and have a photographer following me around when I take a walk from my Instagram page. I mean, it's like that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's that. So when you kind of go to the place of reception and trusting, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, it doesn't really matter what you call it, to be the source of supply, then you stop grabbing at everything or stop trying to tell spirit what you need and how it's supposed to come, which is, again, the small self or the personality structure trying to dictate the rules. It's when we move to a place of reception or surrender or allowance, I think that real alchemy begins to happen.
Isn't it funny though, if we actually got everything we wanted, what a horror show our lives would be.
Yeah, it's really true. I agree. Yeah.
I mean, if I would have gotten what I wanted at 15 or at 20 or at 25, it would have been a horror show because it would have destroyed me. And but you're right. It's because it's that small ego that is afraid of letting go, afraid of letting go, letting God, if you will. And I think for me, at least in my world, when I've let go, things open up and things start showing up that I never even thought in a million years. If you told me a year ago that I would be sitting here speaking to you, I'd have said, you're absolutely mad, because the show didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah.
But then once I decided to go full in, then guests started showing up out of the woodwork and amazing conversations and things are starting to happen. And it was all because I let go, and also let go of fear, which is my next question. Fear. Fear is such a thing that holds us back. Not the fear of the tiger eating you. That's a healthy fear. I'm talking about the fears, the baggage that we carry. Any advice on how we can break through some of these fears? Because everything you had a fear coming out. I had a fear doing this show in so many ways. How do you break through these fears?
Well, I don't know if breaking through is the right way to look at it. The guides that I work with talk a lot about fear, and they say the action of fear is to claim more fear. So every choice we make in fear gets us more of the same. And you just look at the last choice you made in fear and see what it got you. Probably you'll see it got you more fear. So a very simple thing is to stop making choice in fear or through fear. And that's different than prudence, which is what you're talking about the tiger eating you. Prudence is healthy, Fear is all tigers are evil, that's fearful. Don't go to that continent, they have a tiger, stay away from the zoos, they have tigers.
My daughters are terrified of sharks. I'm like, unless they're land sharks and have keys to our house, you're pretty good.
It's true. It's funny. So that's one thing. The guides say that fear isn't that bright. They say fear doesn't transcend because it can't. They say, fear is of God, but doesn't know that it is, and that's its problem. So they say nothing can be outside of God, but you can believe you're not and then have that experience. So they talk about, the guides I work with talk about this thing, they call it the upper room, which they say is the next level of consciousness above the one that we operate in, sort of a collective field. They talk about it in terms of music. An octave is comprised of notes, high and low, and our reality, they say, is in tone or vibration as music. And they say about lifting to what they call the upper room, which they say is the next octave up. And much of what they teach is the transposition of the vibration or the notes of who we are to be sung or played in a higher way. And the interesting thing about the upper room is when you begin to feel it there, and the guides take people to that, and they say, well, what are you afraid of? There's nothing to be fearful of at that level because it doesn't exist. So the level of fear, the vibration of fear lives or expresses at one level. To rise above it is to move beyond it. Do you understand this? Mm-hmm. So imagine, here's an easy example. You're living in a basement apartment and your view out the window is through the transom windows. And you get, and somebody says, well, here, go try the 20th floor. And the view is going to be different. And you go up and there's this great apartment on the 20th floor and you don't have the same darkness. You don't have the same shadow. You don't have the same experience. But what most of us do is we get up to the 20th floor and say, oh my God, I left my ex's stuff in the drawer. And oh my God, there's all those bills down in the basement. I have to run back downstairs. And we go back and we reclaim what we know, even if it makes us unhappy. So my understanding about, moving through fear is not honoring it. And I don't mean don't be stupid. Don't go walk into traffic. It's not like I'm fearless. I will walk into traffic. It's not like that. It's about stop taking the bait. Stop going into an agreement that we should be afraid. Fear is a teacher, and it's just not the best teacher. You can learn about not picking up the hot frying pan without scorching your hand on it. There are other ways to learn a lesson. So that's what I hear.
Now, can you talk a little bit about karma and the concept of karma? Because karma is a large subject matter and has been talked about so many different ways over thousands of years. Mm-hmm. From the guide's perspective, from your perspective,
They've said very little. It's an opportunity to learn. It's cause and effect. It's an opportunity to learn. It is not punishment. It's opportunity. So I hear that we're here to learn. That's part of why we've come. And we're going to learn through all of our experiences. Every experience is valuable or valid in terms of learning. But karma is really cause and effect. So I understand that if you move to a level of tone or vibration, they call it the upper room, you can release some of that stuff because that's very moored in a lower dense level, but you're not going to bypass the lessons that you've come to learn. So I think of it simply as opportunity. It's not the opportunity that I say. I might not want it. That might not be a lesson I want to learn. It's usually not. But that's really it. I don't know that it's much more complicated. But they don't give a system for burning off your karma. I live on Maui now. I have all these friends that are Hanuman devotees. They're chanting the holy names all day. They're wonderful, and I totally am on board. Mm-hmm. But it's not what the guides are teaching. I almost sometimes think, well, that would be much nicer. I could sit and do kirtan all day and have a wonderful time. But they're doing their own thing.
That's not the work that we need to do. In other words, sometimes.
No, it's somebody else. It may be, truthfully. It's just not the system that the guides I work with are teaching. The guides I work with are talking about reclamation. And so these aspects of ourselves that have been put in darkness or we've denied need to be brought to the light. It's really simple. The guides say it this way: who you damn or what you damns you back. And damning isn't finger pointing, it's actually energetic accord. So who you put in darkness calls you to that darkness. You see, the guides say you can't lift the evil man to the upper room because you have made him evil. You've aligned him at that level of consciousness or vibration. So it's a challenging teaching, but it's really, really simple. They also say what you bless blesses you in return. And a blessing isn't a sanctioning. I mean, it's not condoning something that you don't like. It's putting the presence of the divine upon that thing, knowing that thing as within God, so that the action of the divine can be present upon it. And it's funny, when they first started teaching this, it was at the Esalen Institute in California. They sent people out onto the lawn there, like 10, 20 feet apart, and they had them claiming the body is divine. I know what you are in truth, claiming the divinity of form. And you could feel the energy come back to you. It was like waves of energy coming back. And it's the illustration of what you bless blesses you in return. If you can claim the divine in form, you're actually raised or lifted by that. What you bless blesses you in return. What you damn damns you back. Same idea.
So as the Beatles say, love is the way.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, love, it feels, even in my life, as somebody who's single and complains about it, my idea of love, still is sort of filtered through cultural ideas. And I think true love is not a feeling, it's an energy. And it is the energy of source. And so to have that experience is unreal. But it's true. Love does heal.
When they went to the moon, it changed the foundational zeitgeist of the humanity. It was a belief that it could never be done. It wasn't possible. It wasn't a thing. But when that happened, then that opened up a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts about, well, if we can go to the moon, maybe can we go to Mars? And if we can go to Mars, is there other things out there? And then now all these images coming back from deep space, and the more they find out about space, and the more they like, oh, wait a minute, I think at the center of every galaxy, there's a black hole. Oh, that was a concept that Ra was talking about. The channeled works of Ra was talking about in the 80s. And now they're just like, yeah, there's really a black hole. And we're seeing that now. And there's multiple Goldilocks planets that we can even perceive from this distance. And it's just like, even astrophysicists are saying it's a waste of space if we're the only ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And people talking about being fearful of aliens and UFOs and things, if they're smart enough to get here, they're much smarter than we are. So it's just, we've just lived in this kind of bubble that now is expanding. I mean, the awareness is now expanding because of the experiences people are having, and they want to know more.
But also that expansion is scary for a lot of people, because now what was rock solid in their minds is being challenged. And not just being challenged by one or two people, but being challenged by society now. And a lot of these challenges are what's causing all this uprising and like, no, wait a minute. No, we want to hold back to the old ways, or no, I can't believe that. And there's a big jump of stuff happening all over the place. And people's foundational beliefs are being challenged in a very, very big way. And they don't know what to do. So again, you could either get angry and fight, or you can be curious and open yourself up to other ideas. And that's who comes and listens to the show, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the main messages that Theo gives us, is remain curious.
I haven't heard a channeler. I haven't met one yet, nor have I heard of one. Maybe you have, that does not say or does not preach the idea of love, that we are not this physical being, that the basic concepts of what Jesus taught, for God's sakes, these basic concepts. I've never heard of one going, you need to be more selfish. The key to life is the physical indulgence. Like, I've never, those things don't come through in a public way, at least. Have you ever heard of those kind of messages coming through a channel? And if they did they get any publicity out of it?
No, but I have heard of some conspiratorial stuff in the most recent years coming through that not necessarily don't love each other, not those kinds of messages, but just stuff that just isn't true.
Right.
And that, to your point, for me, if the messages are coherent, they may use different words, but the message itself, the basics there's a coherence to it with the love vibe, let's say.
Right.
Then I would say believe it, because if there's a message coming through now, I believe it's here for our highest good. I would say, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say that you can feel the difference. We all have a barometer in us when we hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And truth can be said, to your point earlier, in different words, in different ways, but there's a consistency in that truth. And that's what I would look for with any teacher or anybody you're getting information from. Because Theo often says it would be a really boring life and a boring place if we only had one book to read, and if we only had one song, or if we only had one movie. That there are different messengers to come forth creatively so that we can all understand, because somebody that might listen to Theo and prefer to hear the message from somebody else. That's okay.
Different flavors.
Yeah. To my point about it would be really boring to only have one book.
No, there's an idea that I know Theo's talked about before, and this is a concept that's been talked about a lot, is that we are all one. We are all part of the creator, the source, and that the source has put us out to experience, have different experiences, so he can, or he or it has a better understanding of who it is. In the way of our evolution through these experiences, negative and positively charged. I came up with this idea. I was like, are we the algorithm of God? Because an algorithm is unpredictable. It has free will within guardrails that have been put up by the creator. So if we use that as an analogy, that means we all have free will and we can go either way we want, but there's probability on which ways we think it's going to go. But sometimes it surprises us as an algorithm. So is that just a nice analogy of what we all are in the universe? Like giant algorithms for the source to figure out and discover things?
It's an interesting concept. And I think now with all the technology and everybody's being more aware of technology, it's a different way of describing it, but why not? It can make a lot of sense to a lot of people. I'm not technologically that well versed, but I even get what you just said.
Well, and then that's good. That's good, because you know the basics of what an algorithm is. So that's you understand that concept. It's just an idea for people to really grasp that idea, because it just that idea came to me the other day, I was like, are we the algorithm of God? And if that is the case, that makes so much more sense to me, because we perform very similarly to an algorithm in the sense of, again, with parameters, and we have karma, we have, there's certain parameters that we are placed with in this life. But anyway, it's just a fun idea. I just wanted to throw that at you.
And then you could ask the question, are we artificial intelligence?
Well, there's that's a whole other conversation. And
I know
AI, look, what's happening with AI right now, it's very much in the news right now, and it's out there. And the tools that are being created in AI right now that are publicly being thrown out there, it's just baffling. And you see what they're doing right now, and I go, oh my God, in 5 years, this thing is going to be I mean, everyone's going to be writing books. It's going to be, it's going to be painting.
Well, they've already shown that it can. What is it, that chat? Is it called chat?
Chat JFT. Yeah, of course, technical guys named it.
Yeah.
Chat JFT or JFBT, whatever that thing is. It's OpenAI's text writing thing. But then I just saw DALL-E AI, which is you type in, draw a painting of Sheila channeling Theo wearing a purple dress while riding a unicorn. And it will paint that for you in 4 different paintings. In Van Gogh style. I did it just for fun. Mind-blowing. So you could see where these tools are going to go, and it's going to alleviate a lot of time-consuming things for us as a society. Just so then we have even more time to think about the meaning of life, I hope. Kind of like what Socrates and Plato were doing back in the day.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows where it's going to go? I mean, and again, it's what Theo talks about. There's going to be continual momentum of innovation happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's how we navigate it and work with it that's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, since you've brought Theo up, is Theo available for a session today? I'd love to ask him some interesting questions. I've been working on a list of questions over the last week. Hopefully interesting questions I don't think he's been asked before. So I'd love to see if we can do that for the audience.
Sure. Be happy to.
Appreciate it, my dear.
Here we go. It is the beginning, is it not?
It is.
We are appreciative of the opportunity to be of service unto you.
My first question, Theo, is how does the power of prayer work?
Intention. So know that you are creative beings, placing with intention, and prayer has love in it. Or you wouldn't pray for another or for self. So in a prayer is an ask, but it's also a focus of love, which has momentum in the energetic fields.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.